What's up guys, this is Chris here, and today we're going to talk about some really terrible guns. Today we're going to be going over the 7 handguns you should never carry. And I mean never carry. There's no reason to carry any of these on the list. Not only is there no reason, but I will be giving you some options that will certainly serve you better. Now, these are guns that we have shot, tested, had on the channel, and deemed very unworthy. I don't like to do videos like these because I don't like to shoot really shitty guns, but we do it for you so you don't have to. Now, before we get into the video, I do want to mention my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys very much. It's because of you guys we have ammunition to shoot these horrible guns. If you want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. Just go to the link in the description below and sign up. Also in that description is a local shelter named Iowa. It's the YSS. Those kids could really use your help, so please go down there and donate to those kids. The link is in the description below of this video and every video. Now let's get into it with number 7, one of the least shitty guns on the list, the Braverman pen gun. Now at least this gun is cool. Now not only is it cool, but it's in a lot of pop culture. It's sort of a spy gun. Kind of an assassin gun, I guess you would say, but certainly not a gun you would want to carry. The gun is basically a pen that fires a 22 round, but it comes in 22 Magnum, 25 ACP, 32 ACP, and 380 ACP. None of those you should actually carry. Now you might be able to buy this just because it's cool, but don't put it in your pocket and carry it around and think that you're armed for some sort of altercation, because you certainly are not. What do you think?
Not what I would choose to protect myself with. A cute, expensive novelty, nonetheless.
It is a very expensive gun. It's a collector's item these days. It comes in around $1,000 on average. It's one of the least shootable guns we've ever had on the channel. So how this thing works, at least to my knowledge, which isn't vast, is you pull it out like this, and that cocks it. Sorry about that. And then this is your safety mechanism here. And then this is how you load it. Pop the barrel off here, breech load it, single shot, and then this is your trigger mechanism right here, which is that the worst trigger you've ever felt?
No, Cop Derringer definitely takes the cake.
Fair enough. The upward motion of it takes a little practice, and I've been down here messing with it, and I've developed a little bit of a technique where I put 3 fingers on it like that, press in with my strong side thumb there, and then kind of pull up like that. Not only does it take a really long time to get into action, but when you do, it's very likely you won't be able to hit anything. And we'll miss, because I suck. We actually had Cal from Optics Planet over at my house a couple years ago, and I got to shoot his, and I can tell you from that experience, I was not a fan. I like to look at it, it's a cool gun, but shooting it was not that much fun. From about the distance of 15 yards, I managed to hit 1, I think, out of 5 or 6, and he told me that was the furthest anybody had ever hit anything with it before. Not only that, but it's very hard to shoot, and the trigger and operation is very slick, and it can easily fall out of your hands, so if you're thinking that that's okay, we'll just hit the guy from bad breath distances, it'll probably fall out of your hand before you get there. On top of that, the calibers are so small that you're probably gonna need a headshot, which you definitely will not get unless you're point blank range. And like I said, if you were point blank range, you're better off with a knife. Now, a pen gun is really, really cool, and it may make you feel like James Bond, but not Pierce Brosnan James Bond from GoldenEye that can hit everything, more like Skyfall James Bond that can't hit anything. Overall, the pen gun is a cool gun, but certainly not for concealed carry. In at number 6, the Taurus PT-22.
Oh, already.
And we have a malfunction. That did not take long. The good news is that it kind of fell apart.
Oh.
Well, that's new. Now, the Taurus PT-22 is a horribly cheap copy of the Beretta Tomcat. Now, in classic Taurus fashion, it is a shitbox. It falls apart, it's very hard to load, it has a tip-up barrel system that's supposed to be easy for people with arthritic hands, like elderly people or small-statured shooters, but it's actually harder to use than regular guns like the LCP because it just is put together really poorly. The quality control on it is really bad, the manufacturing is really bad, the metal that they use in this gun is sort of like melted beer cans, and half the time when you open it, it falls apart or just shoots the barrel across the room. But I do like the flip out thing. We had a terrible amount of malfunctions in this, and it only has 8 rounds of 22 mag, so even if it did work as advertised, it's still really ineffective as a concealed carry pistol. Now, it is around $200, making it relatively affordable, but with its long trigger, its terrible sights, its difficult safety to use, and the fact that it is an absolute jam-o-matic, it's really $200 completely wasted. I like this thing though, that's kind of cool. You would definitely be better off with something like the Ruger LCP, which is actually lighter. It has 7 rounds of 380 ACP, which is a better cartridge. It's more reliable, it's easier to shoot, and it's just a way better gun on all fronts for around the same price. So even though the tip-up barrel is cool, stick to the Beretta Tomcat, avoid the Taurus PT22, and if you already own one, definitely do not carry it. In at number 5, the Bond Arms Honeybee.
I can't even hit like 5 yards away.
I could hit that with a rock. Now this is the Bond Arms Honeybee right here. It is chambered in .22 long rifle, which is hilarious because it's about the size and weight of a Glock 26. So instead of getting 10 rounds of 9mm in a super reliable package, you get 2 rounds of this breech action craziness that points back at you when you reload it. It opens a lot like this. You push this lever down here, you open it up, it points back at you, which just fills you with confidence. You load the rounds right here, you drop them back, you rack the hammer right there, and it is a single action gun. So not only do you get 2 shots, but you also have to run the hammer, making it a little bit more difficult to use, because why not make it more difficult? Add to the fact that you have a singular sight, you don't even have a set of sights, you just have this one big one here, but they know you're not shooting very far with it anyway, and if you were a skilled marksman, you wouldn't buy this. Now the Bond Arms Honeybee is a Derringer style pistol, which has been an okay design throughout history. That being said, it is a very, very old design, and there are things that are much better. I'm gonna be honest with you, I personally think Derringers suck, and I think they've kinda sucked since the Old West. You get 2 shots of .22 caliber with the Honeybee, so you have a very small caliber with a very minimal capacity that's very hard to shoot and very hard to reload. What's not to love there? On top of that, .22 is a rimmed cartridge, making it extra unreliable. And if you're thinking, why not get the Derringer in a bigger caliber, like 9mm or maybe 45 ACP, it's because it has a tremendous amount of recoil with a standard caliber, because unlike a semi-automatic that has good ergonomics, a little bit of girth behind it that you can hold on to it, and a spring system to control the recoil, the Derringer gives you all the recoil it has every shot, because it is a breech loading pistol. Now the Honeybee is relatively affordable, just like the Taurus PT22, and just like the PT22, I think you would be absolutely wasting your money. Now, if you think it's a cool gun because you watch The Quick and the Dead and you're a big Sharon Stone fan, then so be it, buy it, look at it, but don't carry it, because it's fucking worthless.
This thing's so fucking silly.
Now, in at number 4, we have a gun that I had pretty high hopes for, but I imagine, like a lot of your children, was a disappointment. It seemed good in theory, but was totally catfished by this gun. This is the Girsan 2311. Now this is a $700 double stack 9mm, which I jumped on like Lizzo at a fucking buffet. But the reality is that this gun works like a $700 2011 as well. I really wanted this gun to work, so we kept shooting it, but it just kept failing me. We had a whole slew of different types of malfunctions with the gun, including failure to feeds, failure to extract. We had terrible accuracy with the gun. We had a red dot that not only broke on us, but also lost 0, and eventually the screws came loose and it just fell off. The gun has more recoil than it should because it was poorly sprung. It has an 8-pound single action trigger, which completely defeats the point of owning a 1911 at all. The main point of owning a 1911 is to get that crisp single action trigger, and if you're gonna pay $700 for a terrible trigger, you can just go out and get an FN gun. At least the FN will work. Now, adding to the problems, the magazines kept falling out because the magazine catch is made of the same shitty material that the gun is. We had one of the craziest ejection patterns of any gun we've ever tested, all the way from straight 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, so if you enjoy rounds hitting you in the face, this is a great gun for you. You can tell that the quality control is heavily lacking on this gun because this is a gun Girsan sent me for review. A person that puts videos up on YouTube for review, they sent me this shit box, so imagine what you would get. I would say the biggest problem I had with the Girsan is really what it should have been. So you can get some decent quality double stack 1911s around the $800 to $1,000 price point, like the Live Free Armory Apollo, for example. But if you get the Girsan, I bet you'll be very unhappy. There's just really no point to owning the gun. If it's not fast and accurate with a good trigger, what's the point? Because there are so many guns under $700 that are going to be more effective, better shooting, lower recoil, more reliable, and just better for concealment concealed carry as a whole. So if you're thinking about one of these, don't get catfished. It's a lot like that girl that's a 10 at midnight and a 2 at 8 in the morning. If you ever had to actually defend your life with this, you better be really good at malfunction clearing. And I'd probably hold the bottom of the magazine to make sure it stays in the gun. Teacup that bitch. In at number 3, we have the Thunderstruck Volley Fire. Now, if the Volley Fire gives you a hint about its accuracy, you're onto something.
What does volley fire mean?
Volley fire is what basically Napoleon's troops did to actually hit something. They stand in a big formation, usually a tactical square, and they fire like 50 muskets in an area, and eventually you're gonna hit something. The Thunderstruck has 2 barrels to it, with the idea that since you suck at shooting, because you're probably a dumbass because you bought the gun in the first place.
You bought the gun.
I know. Now, here is the double barrel revolver right here, and if you're wondering what all this stuff on the side of the grip is, I don't know. It's been in the box for a year, I pulled it out, and it looks like this. Now, the Volley Fire is a very interesting design because it has a double barreled system with a dual trigger system, and as I mentioned before, it is really, really poorly done. Let me get into a first couple things I don't like. Number 1, the build quality is really bad, and the gun feels really rickety, and if you want to push the cylinder out, sometimes it opens, sometimes it doesn't. Second thing I don't like, the sights are really bad. You have a super short sight radius, and it doesn't really matter because the rounds don't go where the sights point anyway, and they're not adjustable, so they're more like a suggestion than an actual set of sights. The third thing I don't really like is gonna be this trigger is definitely the worst trigger in the gun industry. First off, we have a trigger dingus on here like a Glock, which is hilarious. Second off, we have this weird front trigger guard here, which is even more fun because you could never accidentally pull this. I mean, not only do you have a trigger guard, you have a trigger safety, and then you have a 48,000 pound trigger pull, which is mostly on your middle finger. Normally trigger pull is like, boop, and I'm pretty good at that, but this trigger pull is like that. And it's very, very strange. And it's got a trigger safety that if I engage, doesn't seem to make any difference. I guess because the last 2 shots I pulled, I was really trying to focus on the trigger safety to like get that disengaged first. And then the other 2 I didn't, and it didn't seem to make any difference. So, and then my left hand here is kind of like teacupping. I feel like Stallone and Stop or Your Mom Will Shoot. So as you can see here, when we pull the gun down, I don't know if you've noticed, but if you get a solid grip on the gun, you're just gonna smack your knuckles with the trigger when you pull the trigger. So you actually have to pull your hand out of the way and fire the gun like this, which is the craziest and most strange way anyone could fire a revolver. And when that happens, 2 rounds go off at the same time, giving you twice the recoil. And if you're wondering what happens when you have twice the recoil of an average gun with no grip on the gun, take a guess.
Oh, that thing bounces.
Jesus.
Oh,
now the gun does come with 8 shots of .22 Magnum, which is a better caliber than .22 long rifle. However, it still has its own problems. The real downside to having 8 shots of a double barreled revolver is that you technically only have 4 shots anyway. Now, aside from the fact that you can't shoot it very well, it's relatively unreliable, it has the worst trigger ever, it does at least look relatively cool. And if you're looking for a good .22 Magnum, I would heavily recommend the Walther WMP. It is extremely fast, accurate, reliable with a great trigger, good customer service, and you could actually hit stuff with it, unlike this thing. Now at number 2, we have the Paper Gangster gun. We have the Introtech Tech 22. That is the best. Oh, we did have a failure. This is one of those guns that you would be more likely to see in a video where some asshole shoots his roof than you would in an actual gun store being sold to people who want a concealed carry gun. But since I have met a person in real life that shoulder carried this in a shoulder holster, I figured I would put it on the list because dumbasses are everywhere, so here's your warning. Now the Introtech 22 is sort of a .22 caliber Tech 9, and it comes with some very interesting banana mags, which would be cool in theory if the gun ran at all. Now this is one of those guns that I often torture people with when they come over. Like if I have famous YouTubers come over, I always hand them a couple of really shitty guns they've never heard before and make them shoot it, which is why you're probably looking at footage of Mr. Guns and Gear trying to work this as we speak. This has a threaded barrel, some pretty terrible sights. It is obviously stamped out of sheet metal, and then we have a decent grip to it. You have a good capacity, but you have a really terrible caliber for self-defense, my personal opinion. Now, .22 caliber could work for self-defense if they're gonna go off all the time, but the Introtech certainly isn't your boy if you're interested in reliability. Nope, because we had a fail.
It's like a single shot, basically.
Holy shit.
Cool.
See, this is what always happens. Because there's literally no feed ramp, it just kind of hopes it gets in the hole. That is what the Intratec does to the rounds.
Stop moving, cutie. Oh, shit. Wow.
Now I did buy this gun because it's extremely affordable. This is under $200 and it does look kind of cool being held up on your wall. However, it doesn't work at all. We found no 22 ammunition that would work effectively in this. We have cleaned this, we have lubed this. I have not sent it in because it would probably cost more in postage and shipping than it would actually to buy a new one. So I just basically sit here, talk shit about it, keep it in a box at home, and shoot it when I have. It has a side safety on here, which is an interesting design. You don't see that very often. It's not a cross bolt safety. It goes forward, and then if you want to put it on safe, fuck yourself. You have to actually come back with your other hand and do that. How you charge the gun is right here. It has a very interesting charge mechanism. There we go. And then it comes with 2 of these are 30 round magazines, and I believe this one is a 35. So you have solid capacity, but you only get 1 shot at a time. Nope, because we had a fail.
It's like a single shot.
So get real good at doing this. It is probably in some areas a better gun than some of these other guns, but the reason why it's so high up on the list is because it's not only very unreliable, but it's so big, it's wildly impractical, and not only is it this big, but it's also in the smallest caliber that you can get in a handgun.
What would be better?
Everything. Everything would be better. Pick a gun anywhere, in any time that you've ever seen before and buy it. All seriousness though, if you're looking for a quality concealed carry pistol at the $200 price point, it is going to be very difficult to find. That being said, the Taurus GH series that we just did and the Taurus G2 and G3 series aren't bad. On top of that, if you're really hard up and you're looking for a gun super affordable, I mean, I would recommend the High Point C9 certainly over this. It has a very terrible mechanism of itself. It's a blowback operated gun that isn't the most reliable, but it's certainly a lot more reliable than the Intratec or any of the guns on the list. All right, there's not going to be any honorable mentions on this list because I just can't bring myself to do it, but number 1 is going to be my least favorite handgun of all time, and that's saying a lot because I've shot, I think, 1,000 handguns, somewhere in there. And the worst one I've ever shot is this car lighter right here. This is the Outlaw pistol. This is sort of a mix between 1700s technology and, as I said, a 1980s car lighter that you might find in an Intrepid. Now, I would argue that this is the first gun I've ever owned that I think I would rather have a sharpened stick. Like, if somebody was breaking into my house, would I rather have this or a fucking spear? I would probably rather have a spear. This is a breech action slingshot method trigger gun from hell. I mean, if you're trying to figure out how to create the worst gun, they've done it. They've done it right here. This is technically a gun, sort of. So what you have to do when you operate this is you have to pull the trigger down, and the trigger actually holds the breech in, and then you spin it off like this, and you set a 9mm round right there on that. And then when you release the trigger, the firing pin hits it. So you have to release it really slow or it's gonna explode in your face. Then when you're ready and you have your round on there, you very carefully place the barrel back on. And this is your crossbolt safety here, which mine actually doesn't even work. It doesn't even push on safe. So if yours works, let me know in the comment section below. But this is your trigger mechanism right here. And what you do when you fire it, most people pull the trigger to make it work. You actually pull this down and release it. And if you don't pull it all the way down in the bottom of the trough there, it won't have enough inertia to actually hit the firing pin hard enough to go off. So a lot of times you end up flicking the gun like this before it goes off, which is great because the recoil is hilarious. I've felt less recoil on Desert Eagles than this shit. All right, come on, baby. Boom. Because this gun weighs less than 8 ounces. It is completely made of plastic, and it is a single shot 9mm with no recoil spring or mechanism to dampen the recoil at all. Add to the fact that you can't have a solid grip on the gun because you'll pull the trigger right in your hand, just like the double-barreled revolver. Except this one's a little bit worse because at least you have a little bit to hold on to with the double-barrel revolver. When you get your fingers on the double barrel, you can kind of get it out of the way, put your ring finger at the bottom and pull. With the Outlaw, they just didn't add any more grip on there. So the only place you can actually grip is this spot right here. And unless you have little bitty child soldier hands, there's no way you're gonna be able to fire this. So as you can see here, when I fire the gun, I actually have to put my middle finger below that trigger guard there, wrap my ring finger here, and when I fire this thing, the gun almost always just kicks up and out of my hand like that. It is very difficult to hit anything. A, because again, just like the previous gun, the Honeybee that I mentioned, the sights are more of a suggestion than actual sights themselves. They're just these little plastic molded nubs which are not sighted to anything because they know you're not going to be able to hit anything with this trigger, so why the hell sight in the sights? Now, the second thing I don't like about it is that it makes me feel like it's going to explode every time I shoot it. This is a sub $100 gun, so be aware of that. And you get sub $100 quality, as you would expect when you buy a gun like this. So you can't hit anything. It takes a really long time to load. Reloading it, I mean, is basically a joke. It might explode on you. You can't put the safety on. The sights don't really work, and the trigger is the worst in history. So if you can beat this gun for a terrible gun, put it in the comment section below. Now, before you go, if you're looking for some quality guns, we have tons of top 5s on really, really good handguns for concealed carry. And don't worry, you don't have to pay a lot. Just because a lot of these were budget guns doesn't mean there aren't good budget guns. I have lists all over the place of best guns under 350, best guns under 400, best guns under 500, and the list goes on and on. All you have to do is just search them on YouTube, type in Honest Outlaw, best handguns under such and such, and you'll get a solid list of handguns that are not only affordable, but much better than this and will serve you extremely well. Let me know in the comment section whether you've owned or shot any of these, because some of these are obscure and some of these are not. If you've had better experiences with some of these guns than me, and more importantly, if you know any guns worse than this, I would love to hear about them. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Please support your Oklahoma shelters and remember to recycle. I'll check you later. It is funny telling everybody that they're stupid for owning these guns, but I own all 7.
You do. You do.